I know, this video should have been out weeks ago, but life. This is our second week in Japan and it's still non-stop eating. Today we went to an artisanal bakery first and then a coffee shop, both of which our friend Benji found. The barista was awesome. He went to school in Seattle, moved back to Japan, and made probably one of the best cups of coffee I've ever had. Afterwards, we headed to the mall where we had these fat stacks of sweet red and white bean pancakes. They're not too sweet, but they're really filling. Then we met Benji's friend who helped us grab good quality miso paste and soy sauce. I really wanted to bring some back home for us and for my dad to try. For dinner, we went to Benji's friend's restaurant, which is really good Korean food. The spicy octopus soup was comforting against the cold weather outside, and I love the sweet and spicy flavor of the dried squid. We already get really good Korean food where we live, and this place is just as good, if not better. Okay, when Doug and I were walking over to dessert, we noticed lots of trucks blasting music, and they had faces of these guys that looked like they're in boy bands. Turns out you can pay to talk to them. Instead, I paid for some dessert to talk to this guy named Doug. He's pretty cute, and he feeds me. The next day, we had a whole day of adventures at Disney Sea with our friend Food with Michael and our new friend Katie. I made a separate video about this, but not only is the food in Disney Sea pretty tasty, it's also way more affordable compared to Disneyland Anaheim. And they've got Japanese-inspired food. It's a win-win. Michael treated us to the theme park, Katie gave Doug his very first popcorn box, which was Monsters Inc., and I left that place asking, how did I get so lucky to have these friends? If you want to see the full cost of eating here, you can look up the Disney Sea video on my channel. I also showed everything we ate in that one. There's a 7-Eleven right outside our hotel, so I grabbed this ramen that comes from a Michelin-starred ramen spot and a couple of other snacks. I have a standalone video about this ramen. It's really tasty for something that's supposed to be instant. I can only imagine what the fresh stuff tastes like. I've also developed a mini obsession on convenience store fruit jellies and corn drinks. There's an ancient temple in Asakusa, and it's surrounded by street food stalls. Plenty of people rave about the melon pan here. And it's not melon flavored, by the way. It's got a sweet cookie topping, kind of like a concha. It just resembles a melon. I mean, it's good, but if you have to wait 30 minutes like we did, I'd rather wait elsewhere. The wait for these skewered fish also took a while too, but it's more worth the wait in my opinion. The fish was super moist on the inside with a salty, smoky flavor on the outside. And there's bones in it, but it's super soft. I saw this on a Demon Slayer episode and I couldn't believe I had it in real life. All the street food lines were too long and most of them took cash, so Doug and I wandered outside of this area and into a Tsukumen shop that he found. This was so flavorful. The broth had a strong flavor that clung onto the noodles when you dipped it in. It was a garlicky, peanutty, rich umami bomb. Just down the street was the strongest matcha gelato in the world. They had 7 levels of matcha strength, and I highly recommend getting the highest. And don't sleep on the other tea flavors, they are fantastic. Not that sleeping's an option after all that caffeine. Doug really wanted to go to the Monster Hunter Cafe, so we grabbed a reservation for dinner. We didn't have high expectations on the food in these themed cafes, which helped. The food wasn't terrible, but it's definitely not like the best food you can get in Japan. But it was worth it to see Doug's excitement at all the Monster Hunter memorabilia. Our favorite was actually the Mabo chicken cutlet. It was pretty good. This day was a big day for me because there was one thing I absolutely wanted to do this whole trip. Pet some Shibas! You get 1 vending machine drink with admission. We have no pets, but I've told Doug that if we got one, it would be a Shiba. I love that they're not clingy and smart enough to operate Silent Hill. That all sounded great until I paid for 30 minutes of petting time, and then I learned that they run away or hide under a table and ignore you. One of them eventually warmed up to me. It was worth it. I know green curry ramen and tom yum ramen sound kind of wild for Japan, but this spot was recommended by our friend from Japan. The green curry is super creamy from the soy milk, but the curry itself was actually pretty mild. The tom yum ramen had a stronger flavor from the spices, but both Doug and I preferred the green curry ramen more. I liked it. Try this spot if you have the time. This dessert spot specializes in matcha Mont Blanc, and that swirly stuff is matcha flavored sweet chestnut paste. It does have a strong matcha flavor and the texture gets kinda chalky, but when you eat all the components together, it gets really creamy. Doug said that the matcha beer was whatever, but I wouldn't recommend getting the hojicha latte here, it's super watered down. However, the hojicha ice cream was delicious and the Mont Blanc was fun. Pretty good if you like strong matcha. We crossed one of the busiest pedestrian streets in the world, and I recognize it from the opening scene of Resident Evil Afterlife. Okay, this Izakaya spot was not the best experience. There were a lot of things that were sold out, and it was definitely a touristy spot. But at least the food that we did manage to get was good enough. Our favorite was the scallops with uni. So right after, we just hopped over to a spot that slings out soba noodles quickly since it was getting pretty late and we were definitely not full from that Izakaya spot. Their soba is handmade and it's got a nice chew to it. Not bad for waiting just 1 minute on these fresh hot noodles. And it helped warm us up. It was really cold during our trip to Japan. This Omakase Sushi spot was so popular. If you wait in line and somehow managed to get in because of reservations not showing up, I think the price was around $35 a person. That is a steal. If you book online, it's about $65 per person. It'll change depending on the exchange rate. We were getting really nervous, but our whole party of 4 miraculously was able to get in. And wow, for $35, this is hands down the best Omakase Sushi experience that I've ever had for that price. At this point, we were just grabbing a couple of snacks to tide us over before our highly anticipated dinner. The dinner is a meat omakase spot, and the owner asked us to keep the restaurant's name out of my videos. I made a separate video on this restaurant, and a lot of people were throwing a fit about it. What am I supposed to do, break my promise to the restaurant owner? That's messed up. All that aside though, the highlight of this dinner was the beef tartare with egg yolk and raw liver with sesame oil. I feel like the raw stuff was the tastiest. There was so much meat, I couldn't eat my whole share of the food, but I got Doug to take care of that for me. This restaurant was probably the most memorable experience for me this week, and of course I'm sad that I can't share it with you guys, but I'll be honest, I actually don't even remember the name of this place. Doug does, but he told me that it doesn't even show up on Google. Were we spirited away? If you could have one meal from all the spots we went to for this week, which would it be? Tell me in the comments along with a doggy emoji. See you next week.